Well, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever part of the country you are in. I am Dr. Jacqueline King, as you know, the CEO and founder of Black Women Empowered. And as I always say, we bring exciting people doing exciting things. And today will definitely not disappoint you. I have the lovely Dr. Joan Samuels-Dennis, RN psychotherapist. Let me read her bio. It's like a book. So let me just get started. Dr. Jones Samuels-Dennis, Ph.D., is an award-winning speaker and authority on trauma recovery, reconciliation, and forgiveness. Joan has specialized in promoting the mental health and well-being of individuals, families, and communities for over a decade through her groundbreaking trauma recovery strategy, the forgiveness method. Her career as an individual, couple, and family psychotherapist has helped countless people heal from traumatic experiences, transform their physical and mental health, overcome relational challenges, and reclaim their lives. Her long and impactful career began at Ryerson University, Toronto, where her passion for helping others led her to become a registered nurse soon after she earned her master's degree in community health nursing from, now how do you pronounce that?
Duville College.
Duville, okay, University in New York.
Yes.
She completed her PhD in nursing and mental health promotion at Western University in London, Ontario. In 2016, she founded Becoming Inc., an organization dedicated to tackling the effects of current and historical traumas on the mental health of African diaspora and other oppressed people across the globe. She's also the founder of Village of Peace. This independent, not for profit organization promotes the mental health and well being of people of African descent with services that create gathering spaces, design trauma informed anti racism curricula, certified trauma recovery specialists, and support the success of Black entrepreneurs. Oh man, I had to stop there because that just whew, that
They gave
I
you
had to
the
stop.
long bio.
It's a long one, but I had to stop there because oh man. So let me just start by the beginning.
Yeah.
Did you always know that this was what you wanted to do?
Absolutely not. I started off working as a public health nurse, and that's when I discovered my really true love for mental health and mental health promotion. Then I was working with single mothers who were on social assistance, and I was there to support them in understanding what their issues are, connecting them with resources. I suppose all of that is still related to what I do today. But that was the beginning. I listened to these women's stories. I listened to the traumatic life experiences that they had had. And I realized how good I was as a nurse at listening, and how helpful listening is to the healing journey and the healing process. So I listened. I went on. I did my master's degree. I listened to the types of traumas that they had experienced. And then I thought, well, I can't just spend all day listening. I have to do something about this. I have to have an intervention that would help these people do something about these experiences that they've had. So I went on to do my PhD, and my single desire was this: to develop an intervention that would end post-traumatic stress disorder, end depression, and anxiety, all of these issues these women were facing. And then I even expanded it to men. I didn't discover the intervention then. It would be years later that I would discover this forgiveness process. And then it would be 7 years later that Holy Spirit would take me through a process of dissecting it, understanding it, seeing that healing is the first part of our journey, and that becoming that transformed, beautiful version of ourselves is the next part and the longest part of our stage. But once we move through that, we have this wonderful purpose that's before me. Or before us. So, the thing that you've just read is kind of like the destination. I feel like I'm really just beginning with the Village of Peace and what that all entails. But it's a beautiful, wonderful destination to move towards. And I'm so excited to talk with you today, and so excited for the journey that's ahead.
It's amazing. And uh, God doesn't make any mistakes. I just have to put that out there,
None.
because with us just launching our new network for Black and Brown women and entrepreneurs,
Yes.
what you do is so important, because as a woman who spent almost 27 years in corporate America working with Caucasian, mostly men engineers, I mean, it was nothing but the grace of God that allowed me to get through that. Because you already know I experienced trauma at its
Of course.
highest level.
Of course. Of course.
Always being the only Black woman in the meetings, the racial slurs. I mean, I was back in the 80s and
Yep.
70s, so
Yep.
it wasn't even, there was no protection. And I'm in management. There's no
Yep.
protection. I just had to deal with it
Yep.
the best I could. So what you do is so important. It's even more important now, since the era of past Donald Trump, and then George Floyd,
Yep.
and the mothers that are experiencing trauma, dealing with the beatings and killings of their children, their daughters, their sons. I mean, it goes on and on and
On
on.
and on and on. Yeah.
And not even mention uh, the pandemic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could just keep going. So I know that, we're supposed to be on the other side of the pandemic, but I think that Black and Brown women have suffered the most. Talk about that.
We have suffered the most. I think the thing though that delights me about where we are right now is we're at such a deep, if you had to kind of say, in the well or in the hole, we're in the hole right now. But what I'm excited about is coming out of it, because you have to recognize that the contributing factors to being in the hole are historical, right? And that it is related to racism. It is related to the structures that we've developed in this society. But the thing that's exciting about it is when you're in the hole, nobody wants to stay stuck forever in a hole. And so what they then begin to do is begin to search for, what's my answer? What is this thing that I need to do in order to finally overcome this? I know there were like so many forgivenesses that I myself had to do, because this is how I keep myself healthy on a daily basis. I assess myself every morning. Is there something to forgive? I assess myself every morning. Is there a goal that I need to set? And do I actually believe that I can achieve that? Is there a belief that's going to help, that's going to hinder me? Do I believe that I'm it already, right? Like the future already is. So do I actually believe that? And if there's something blocking me from believing that, then how do I unblock it? So I have to practice that. I had to do the forgiveness for George Floyd. I had to do the forgiveness for Tyree Nichols. I had to do the forgiveness of white men and Black men and Black women and white women and all the other women in the world who kind of are, nitpicky and snippy and sometimes very critical and very judgmental. But then as I do that, I have to recognize that all of that is in me as well. So now I put off all of that stuff. And now I step into the new place where I proceed in life in all of these positive, wonderful ways that I want to.
So do you utilize affirmations?
I do, in a slightly different way. So the affirmations I utilize are connected to the body systems. So we have 12 major organs, and there are affirmations that are connected with those. So if I assess myself and I find that one of my body organs is out of alignment, then what I'll do is I'll say an affirmation. So for example, the large intestines is connected with how good or how worthy I feel. So if I assess that organ and it's out of balance, then I will do an affirmation that's basically, I'm basically good. I'm basically good. And so with that affirmation, it's saying, I don't think we can ever get to being perfect, but I'm basically clean and I'm basically good and I'm worthy of love. And I don't have to do anything for the love. The love is already there. All I have to do is accept it. So I accept what is. I'm basically clean. I'm basically good. And I am worthy of love. So that's one affirmation, but I do it based on the organs that might be out of alignment.
Wow, that's pretty deep. So I have to ask you this because I'm just really recently finding out about narcissistic personality disorder. And honestly, I'm 65 years old, and I never encountered that I was aware of a
Right?
narcissist until recently.
Yes.
And it blew my mind to the point where I had to start studying it. 'Cause I'm serious. I thought something was wrong with me.
Right, right.
Can you talk about that?
The best way for me to describe narcissism, I know there's kind of like a lot of diagnostic ways of speaking about it, but I tend to just kind of like make it really simple for people. When we go through a trauma, and the narcissists usually develop or come to that place of growing out of somebody that's perfectly normal. But that person has typically a family member, perhaps a father, a mother, who really judge them and criticize them a lot from their perspective. That's what they feel. From their perspective, then they find a way to navigate that relationship. So what they will tend to do is they will tend to mirror or mask. So when you mirror, what you're doing is you're basically thinking about the individual that's in front of you and the ways in which they're reacting to you. And you will shift and reshape yourself in all the ways that you need to give that person exactly what they need in order for you to experience a delightful relationship with that person. It gets all distorted though when the mirroring becomes like a camouflage, and the individual continues that type of behavior, and it confuses the other people. And so they think they're dealing with an authentic relationship, but they're really not. It's a very manipulative kind of relationship where the individual then turns it on themselves, where every time they go in and now they mirror the individual, it's really all about them. They get what they need from the relationship by manipulating the other individual to kind of think that everything is okay, think that they're on their side, think that they are there right there with them. The other thing that can happen is then you also have the mask. So the mirror is really reflecting the other person. The mask is, I'm just going to completely hide who I am. So it's very egotistical. When you hide yourself and then other people can't find that, it gives you almost like a rise, like I am powerful because I can manipulate and almost let this person
You
believe
are so
I'm
on
being
point.
true.
I'm sorry I had to say
Yeah,
it.
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just had to say you're so on point. Keep going.
Yeah. So once the mask is there, you're thinking you know this person, but really you don't know this individual at all. It's not a real authentic person. It's a personality that's been made up. But the truth is, it started as a coping mechanism to trauma. And if the
Mm.
person goes back and then begins to look at the traumatic moment that caused them to do that, they can then take the mask away. They can then take away what we call subpersonality, partial personalities, and some of these other processes that show up just because you're trying really to kind of survive, but this is how you do it. And we all survive in different ways. So what I say is, don't necessarily judge it. Just begin to notice how a person shows up in your life is completely inauthentic and you don't know it. And how you can't necessarily discern it because somehow you haven't had your antennas up. And now that you know it, the question is, okay, so how do I become more discerning from the very beginning at identifying those people who are inauthentic?
I recently interviewed a young man. He's in his 30s, and he is, I don't know if you saw it, but he's on TikTok. He has a 1.4 million followers.
Wow.
He
Yes.
is a confirmed narcissist. Did you see it?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay, the interview was amazing because he gets on and he tells these women, and so many women I'm finding out have been in these relationships, and I don't think they knew what it was. I didn't know.
Right.
And so he'll tell you, like, I'm in therapy. He says, and if I come out of therapy, I will revert back to the person I was. He said, they'll tell you that they're going to straighten up. They'll tell you they're going to go to church. They're going to tell you all this, but they're only telling you what you want to hear, but none of it is real.
None of it. None of it. Yeah. None of it. And so he can come out of it, but he has to make the decision, right? It's a very strong, almost possessive, spiritual possessive kind of thing, where it just consumes the individual. And until they have a really, really strong motivation to come out of it, they don't. But it's probably one of the hardest to come out of. It's almost like they don't control it anymore. It controls them.
So he's married and he
Yes.
has kids. Are most narcissists like really highly intellectual? Because that's what I have found. Why is that?
I think they are supposed to be great people. They actually lead a lot of powerful organizations. And
Elon Musk.
right? And I think in a lot of ways, when you are congenial, let's put it that way, when you are the person who has charisma, when you attract a lot of people, I think part of the draw is they see a part of themselves in you, so they are attracted to you. So what do you do with that? Well, you just continue being you. That's why they were attracted to you in the first place. But the narcissist sees that as they have to then do something rather than just be themselves. And then because they've never really been themselves, then they create these multiple personalities that they'll be one thing to you, Dr. Jackie, and then they'll be one thing to me because they just want to connect. But the connection is false. And that's the thing about it. But they're brilliant.
They can be very abusive.
Very.
That comes from childhood trauma or some type of trauma?
Whether it's from the trauma itself or whether they then develop an inclination for control. And that's where abuse comes from. It's that inclination for choice, control, and power. Those three things. So if they're in a relationship where they feel their power is threatened, or their choices are threatened, or they feel that their control is threatened, then they will take yours. It's kind of like, how much peace can you take from a person so that you have peace? That's literally how it is. So it becomes warlike, and then they can become quite abusive.
Oh my goodness! I didn't really plan on going in this direction, but this is so exciting because
yes,
I am finding out so many women are stuck in these domestic violence situations, and the person that they're with tends to be narcissistic.
Yeah. And it's up to the women then to make a decision, right? So that's really the challenge. Is we're always asking other people to change. As women, we will give them this many chances. Well, maybe they'll show up this time. Maybe they'll show up the next time. Well, maybe it'll be the next time. So there's kind of like, with the narcissist, they show up like as your dream guy. They show up right away. Like, you always want people to show up like just in that picture perfect space. They show up that way. And then when you see the true them, you're like, well, no, this isn't the true them. The true them that I saw was the person that I saw at the beginning. So the hope then becomes, well, let me give him a chance to show up again. Another. And there you are 10 years later, still being beaten by this person, still being, downtrodden emotionally by this person, still being controlled by this individual, hoping still that the first person you met actually shows up again. But that was a false person that you met. And that's where most women go wrong. It's the person that's in front of you right now. That's the real person. And if that's the person you need to run from, if that's the person you need to get away from them as quickly as you can. Don't make any excuses. Don't be like, oh, I'm a Christian, and Christian women are supposed to like just take it and take it. No, that's not what God demands. God demands that you love yourself and then you love others. So if you're staying in an abusive relationship, you've got a distorted view of Christianity. So you need to check yourself, and then you need to exit that kind of relationship.
Okay, so I know that they can turn it on and off.
Yes.
Like a water faucet. I've seen it firsthand myself. be so charming, and you're like, okay, this was just a, bad, they were having a bad day or whatever. But okay, so let's talk about how the women, they can't separate that. So it's hard to leave, right?
They will have to strengthen themselves to trust themselves. The part that women go wrong with is refusing. I mean, absolutely refusing to listen to the spiritual guidance that comes, right? You can never change another person. And in this life's journey, the change is about us. What brought you into a relationship with someone who could completely lie to you and you not even perceive it, right? So, where is the lack of hearing? Where is the lack of sight? And I'm talking about spiritual hearing and spiritual sight. Why is that not yet developed in you? Ask yourself that question. Instead of asking, why doesn't he listen? Why doesn't he see? Why doesn't he behave properly? Ask yourself, why don't I listen? Why don't I see? Why don't I behave the way that I'm supposed to behave? Love means we protect ourselves. So why am I unwilling to protect myself, right? And why am I so willing to continue to trust somebody that I can't trust? Believe in someone that I can't believe in? Why? So when you begin to ask yourself those kinds of questions, it leads you down a path where you now have to discover, what trauma have I experienced that has placed me in this position? Once you go back and heal that trauma, this person that you're with, you can make certain demands, but then you're now going to uphold the consequences, which might be, if you don't change, then I'm gone. And you give them one more chance, and then you decide whatever the consequence is that you uphold it. And that takes a lot of strength and courage. So that's part of the journey of healing as well.
Okay, so what about the cheating? Because I mean, I told you I really went through the study. I had to real, because I'm like, what is this? That's part of it. Because what I read was they can't be satisfied. After the thrill's gone with you, they're constantly looking for another thrill. Is that correct?
Yeah. So again, I'll take it back to a very practical level, right? The person who is together with themselves, right? And I mean, in a space of oneness with themselves, right? You are aware of who you are. Your behaviors line up with who you are. You are just in that place of togetherness. That is not possible for the narcissist, right? They cannot be in a place of togetherness. They cannot be in a place of oneness with self, which means they will continually look for others to support them with boosting their ego, with feeling like they're attaining and achieving something. They just need that because they've got so many sub-personalities, partial personalities that are at play with them, that literally until they come back to that place of oneness, which I want to believe is possible with the willing heart, then when they come back to that place of oneness and that place of being completely healed, they can be in a one-on-one monogamous relationship, no problems, just like any other man in the world. But until they come back to that space of healing and return to that place of oneness, they cannot give you what you want, male or female. They just can't give you what you want.
Do you know what is the percentage of, I don't know if you know this, of those who actually can come to the place of oneness? Do you know? Is it a high percentage?
In terms of the narcissist, you mean, or in terms of like
the narcissist?
I wouldn't bet on them, is what I'm saying.
No, I mean, I kind of knew what you're going to say, but I want to hear it from the expert, because we keep telling ourselves. I mean, I'm be honest with you. I met one that had everything on my checklist.
Right.
I'm saying everything.
Yep. That's how they appear.
And when I had to, after, it actually didn't take me that long to figure it out. And I said,
yeah, because you got discernment, right? So you catch it very quickly. Yep.
I said, first I thought, like, what? Something's wrong with me. In the beginning, I'm like, okay. can I be this off? What's wrong? So I'm serious.
And they count on that though. Dr. Jackie, they count on you distrusting yourself. Because if they can get you to continue down that road, you can be in a relationship with them for a while, right? And even stay after you've discovered this is not the real person. Yeah.
And the gentleman that I interviewed, he does role playing. He's so good at it. He'll pretend like he's the woman, and he'll pretend like he's the narcissist. And, I mean, he's so on point with it. I've seen him like, okay, come home, and so the woman says, he says, "What's wrong?" She's upset, and
Yeah.
so she says, "My aunt just died," and he goes, "Well, you weren't that close with her, and she was 90. What? I'm serious. And that sounds just like him, doesn't it?
It does, right? So it always will be a bit of minimizing, because that's their modus operandi. I will minimize everything because I don't want people to like be alarmed with the things that I do. So it's minimization, minimization, minimization. So whether you're talking about a funeral or whether you're talking about them doing something wrong, will always be in that space of I'm just going to diminish this to the smallest point possible. Yeah.
Wow, this is so good. This is so good. I believe that you're going to be a blessing to so many women, because
Thank
I think
you.
that there are many women who don't even realize it. Like I said, I never had to, other than the former president, honestly, I never really had to deal with, and I didn't have to deal with him,
Right.
that I knew was a confirmed narcissist. Now that I studied the whole thing, I
Yeah.
found out there was a few more that I hadn't recognized. So yeah.
Right. Yes. But Dr. Jackie, you'll see them coming. You will see them coming.
Oh, yeah.
You don't even have to guess anymore. You don't have to you'll see them as they smile and begin to shake your hand. So it's all about that quick discernment and that listening to your spirit that will tune you in to that. So to all the ladies who might be experiencing this, begin to trust yourself. That's the most important thing in this game.
All right, we've talked enough about this. So you have books. Talk about your books and how you actually help people get through trauma.
Yeah, I have a book called 490 Forgive and Live Fearlessly. It's my story about moving through the healing journey. And at the same time, I'm teaching those who are reading about the forgiveness process and what makes it so different. I take it out of the realm of being emotional and put it into the realm of awakening. So awakening to who I truly am, awakening to the things that I am fearful of, and then making a very decisive effort to overcome every single fear that I have in my life. So I really focus on the fearlessness and living that fearless life. So that's really important to me. Once we move through a healing journey, it becomes a becoming journey. And the transformation journey is probably the longest part of the process. For me, my transformation has literally taken over 7 years, and I think I'm still transforming. I don't think that ever ends. So you might think about it as a life journey, but I show the women how I move from healing to then just hearing from God in these really very precise, beautiful ways, also being instructed in these very beautiful ways that have helped me to now move towards the destination where I'm moving. I also have the Ultimate Forgiveness Journal. It's called Forgive, Master the Art of Letting Go. And with that one, you literally move through 40 forgivenesses. It's a bit of a set up with a vision at the beginning, and then you move through your forgivenesses. And for anyone who moves through those 40 forgivenesses, it really is an awareness of the I am. I am Joan, but what does that mean? So there's this awareness of coming to an understanding of who you are divinely, and then who you are as a professional, who you are in this world, what place, what position are you in, and are you going to play it effectively? So that's what that journal will help women do. There's another book, it's called Becoming, The Journey to Love. And that one was a series of different women, about 20 women telling their stories of trauma, its resolution, and then coming into that space where they could basically give their living testimony to others in the world.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, you are really amazing. And like I said, I'm so thankful that we've connected,
Yes.
because there's so much that you can give women to help them move forward. One of the things I actually, believe it or not, this morning was talking to a man, and I
Yes.
won't say who, but we were talking about emotions and between women and men, and they
Yeah.
were saying that women are too emotional. They don't
Mhm.
like, you
Right.
know, women who, if you're in a leadership position and you can't cry,
Right.
it shows a weakness. Talk about that.
Um, I think it's good to cry. I think even for the man, I think it's important to cry. I think there's a purification that happens with crying, but often we don't utilize crying in the way that we should. So oftentimes we do get very emotional. And what I'll say about trauma, if I can define trauma for your audience, is that a trauma is not so much about the intensity of the event, but it is about the response to the event. And when you have that response, there's going to be a bodily response, there's going to be an emotional response or a mind or thought response, and then there's going to be a spiritual response. That idea of either you're in a state of love or you're in a state of fear, and you can't be in both at the same time. It doesn't transition that way. So when you have that response, usually you feel like you're being punished, you feel overwhelmed, you feel like there's a sense of panic, and then you feel as though you're being punished, right? So it's in that realm, there's a wide array of things that can be seen as traumatic in our lives. We all experience at least 3 traumatic events, and they cycle. So if you can imagine, you have a traumatic event when you're a child, you begin to repeat the pattern of the traumatic event. And then if you have another traumatic event that's based on that pattern, but the trauma shifts a little bit, say in your teenage years, then another pattern begins. So now you have 2 cycles of patterns that you're moving through. And then if you have another trauma in your adult years, and if you haven't resolved your childhood or your teenage trauma, now you have this triple cycle. And so your life feels a little bit discombobulated, and it feels as though you're just kind of in a complete chaos at times. So we respond to trauma first by going to talk about it. So sometimes it looks like gossiping, but it's really, I'm very concerned about this, and I want to talk about it with somebody. Or it can feel as though you're constantly going to someone for support, and that's if the trauma ended there, or the response to the trauma ended there. But if we don't get someone who helps us to feel okay by talking about it or by gossiping, as some might title it, then the next level is I'm going to run away. And then if I can't run, then the next thing is I'm going to fight my way out of this. And if I can't fight, then the last thing is I completely shut down. I go numb, I go voiceless, my body is very still. So here's the thing, Dr. Jackie, whatever your first response to that trauma that you experience at the earliest stage, whatever your first response is, it will always be your response. So if, for example, your first response was, gossip or, slander or, just like total chatter and nonsense chatter, that will be your response. If your response was running away, it will continually be your response. If it was fighting, it will continuously be your response. So it's not like we have to call one bad or not bad. The only thing is to really think about, how did I initially respond, or how did this person initially respond when they became afraid? And then that's when we step into a place of acceptance and allowance for people to be able to express. So I say men, they have a variety of ways of coping, as well as women. And I think it's okay, whatever way that works out. I don't think we need to criticize one another about it. It just is. But if you're wanting to do something different, if you're wanting to not be impacted and then cry or fight or run away, or engage in the chatter in whatever way you do it, then you can make a decision to go back and heal the original trauma, and that kind of behavior will cease altogether.
Yeah, but so like I said, spending so much time in corporate America, I
Yes.
think we as women, sometimes we don't have a choice but to conform
Yeah.
to the way men are, because they're not accepting.
Yeah.
Like if you're in our hormones, they're not accepting those excuses. Well, they look at them as excuses.
Yeah.
Menopause or
Yeah.
menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
So what is your? I mean, what do you tell women?
Yeah.
Should they play like the boys or?
No, I think that's what I'm saying. Don't play like, just be in that place of acceptance of self. And don't play like the boys. I think that's a thing that we need to release ourselves from, right? So just because somebody is telling you chin up, buck up, be strong, you're here with us as boys, so you got to play like the boys. Well, I don't think any of us need to do that, but it's hard to be authentic with ourselves when we are surrounded by and with an environment that doesn't allow us to be us. So a lot of women will be tempted to be the strong, dogmatic type because that's who they're surrounded by. But what I want to say to you is it's you, and you have to be authentic to you, right? So if you need to get out of the environment, sure, you can do that. But if you want to be authentic to you, you're going to have to find that environment that allows you to be authentically you, right? And I'm sure you were in those environments, Dr. Jackie, and you were probably really stressed. And now you've moved out of that environment and look at you, right? Like, just look at you, right? So are we going to stand there and fight that people should change? Or are we just going to step into the place where we truly belong and then watch ourselves just majestically begin to evolve into all of these beautiful things that we are?
So basically, you're saying tap into your purpose.
That's right. Tap into your purpose. That's the answer.
I absolutely love this. So, is there anything that you want to share as advice to our women? We have millions of women that follow us all over the world, actually.
I remember you said you did a survey and you asked women what they wanted. What was the number one thing that women wanted? Maybe I could respond to that.
Yeah, it was well, it was the top three was finance, mental wellness was up there.
Yeah.
And they wanted help on financing and entrepreneurship. Those were the top three.
So let me tackle all of them at the same time then. The reason why a lot of us don't succeed is because we haven't dealt with our traumas, right? So even if you have the great idea, even if you have the great push towards that thing that God has told you to do, our traumas are always going to be a resistant force to moving from the current, what I call the current reality, to the desired reality. So what's going to happen is if you're moving towards this thing that you really want, you're going to have a lot of fears that are embedded in your traumatic experiences. And so the resistance is then going to come forward. The important thing is to be able to deal with those traumas. And the way that you deal with that trauma is to actually move through a journey of immersing yourself in that original moment, seeing the ways that you love, seeing the things that you fear, seeing how you feel about it, offer compassion to others, and then release them. It is only as you release other people that you can come back to who you are. So I talked about the partial personalities, the sub-personalities that develop in our most traumatic moments. It's only as you deal with your traumas that you actually rid yourself of those sub-personalities and those partial personalities. What do I even mean by partial personality? When you are traumatized, you naturally pick up the personality of the people who traumatized you. So guess what? You're replaying the other people who traumatized you and re-traumatizing yourself. So in order to heal, you need to rid yourself of those partial personalities that show up. And those are your traumatizing individuals. Then there are sub-personalities. These are personalities that submerge themselves, but they are coping personalities. They worked at the time that you needed to cope, but now they don't serve you any longer. So you have to go and you have to find them, and literally you have to release yourself from them, right? After you do this, there is a level of clarity that comes, that then all of my past clients, then they migrate into discovery of purpose. This is when you begin to listen. This is where you begin to hear other people speak. You begin to hear yourself speak. You begin to hear God speak. And so as you merge all of those voices and listen carefully, then your purpose becomes known. All right. So now you need to prepare. Okay, so because every purpose is your purpose, not anybody else's. It's not in a corporation, it's you. So you're going to have to build the entrepreneurial endeavor, that destination. It's not about serving other people, it's about serving God. So you will now have to build it. But how do I build it, right? This is when you need the mentorship. This is when you need a team around you that is absolutely forceful. They've already done it. And now they want to support you, guide you in doing it yourself. So you're going to need mentors and you're going to need coaches who've already done it, and they form a circle around you and they help you just rise, right? And this is how we do it. This is really the nature of how we succeed and how we live by our divine purpose. You can make money living by your purpose. Don't ever let anyone talk you out of that particular belief. No matter what it is, God has set it in your mind, and now it's time just for you to do it, but you always need a little bit of help.
I love that. I keep saying I'm gonna let you go wrap up, but there's one thing that came to my mind. Hoarders.
Hoarders.
That is it.
Tell me, why hoarders? What is it about the hoarders? Tell me.
I'm just trying to connect that. I understand it's a mental illness.
Yeah.
So what causes it?
So the hoarders are an interesting group. They are a group that feels rather empty. So they're going to have stomach issues. That's where their imbalance is. So their bodily imbalance is going to be in the stomach. The stomach is about whether you feel full or empty. When you eat a good meal, you're so satisfied, you smile, or you say, So the hoarders are usually individuals who are very dissatisfied with life. Life feels empty to them. Often they've been neglected and rejected. And because this emptiness is there, again, hoarding is just one coping with dissatisfaction with life. But for the hoarder, because that emptiness is there, they're constantly thinking about this thing that they can acquire. And then they don't want to let go of it until they feel the fullness of it. So they never let it go, because we don't get fulfillment from external things. We don't get fulfillment we might get it from relationship with other people, but for the most part, the fulfillment has to come from us loving ourselves. So because they never get that, then they don't want to release those things. So it's really like, I'm so hungry, I get greedy. And so like I pull it all in, and then like I wrap my arms around it. I'm like, I'm never letting you go, because until I feel fulfilled, right? So when they deal with their traumas, they will come out of the hoarding as well. And this might be politically incorrect to say, but have you noticed that the European nation, in going out and colonizing everything, was really just hoarding? Like, have you noticed that there is this very narcissistic hoarding personality?
Yes.
That as a nation, the European has. So everything is mine.
Everything belongs to us.
Everything is mine. And if you have it, I must take it. So that kind of, it comes out of a wound that I'm still trying to discover, where does that wound come from? But I think it's something as a nation they're going to have to discover, because out of that, as a nation, they've created some partial personalities, sub-personalities, some narcissistic personalities. All of these different personalities are present within that nation that we now exhibit simply because we've been wounded and traumatized by them. That might not be the most politically correct.
You don't have
say,
to,
but
you can be yourself with me. You don't have to sugarcoat anything, because I'm right there with you. And so, speaking on the not politically correct piece, here's one of the things that they've done is they've created a group of, I'll say, many monsters.
yeah,
Who feel like you don't deserve this. You
yeah,
don't belong. You can't. This is all ours. We had
yeah,
it first, and you know,
yeah.
that's what's been created.
Yeah. And so many parts of that are, if you look in what we call the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for mental disorders, you'll see the listing of every kind of coping with trauma that there is. And you'll also see, like, as a nation, a human nation, that we've got all of those disorders, but it's because of the trauma. And then if you look at it from kind of like, if you look at enslaving a people, and keeping them there for generations and generations. Imagine if one white man held a black person in his basement, and then for generations, treated them poorly, held them in that space for like generations. And then finally, when they're free, he goes after them and he, beats them down in whatever way. And then he limits their job and all of that stuff. Like, you go, what kind of psychopathic maniac is that? Right?
Yep.
Now, when it's an individual person, we'll call them every kind of name that, we need to give them. And we'll even put them in jail. But when you think about the European nation and what it has done to us, it's been exactly that. But now all of the bizarre psychopathic, sociopathic, narcissistic behavior has been normalized, and we accept it as just the normal. And so it's time for us to rise out of that acceptance and to say, no, that is not normal behavior, and I refuse to participate in it anymore. And I refuse to let you think that you have the higher ground in terms of human behavior. And instead, I tell you, your behavior is psychopathic and sociopathic and narcissistic and all of these other things, by the way, that you've created in this DSM manual.
I love it.
Not politically correct.
Oh, no. You are so on point, girl. You're my sister from another mother. I feel it. But that's why a lot of people don't like Black women empowered. And I'm just gonna be real with you. I've had white women come to me. Actually, one particular told me that I was racist. She was gonna report me to the. She said if she did white women empowered, I would report her to the NAACP. She said she was gonna report me. This is true. She wrote this on Facebook. She said she was reporting me to NBC, CBS, ABC, and all that. And so, you know what I said? I said, it's interesting. Here's the deal. If you started White Women Empowered, I wouldn't even be on your page. So it wouldn't even matter to me what you did. That's number one. I said, and besides that, if you took the time to actually read, you would see that we empower all women. Black Women Empowered is the name. A Black woman started the organization. The majority of the people that follow us are Black women, but we don't exclude you because you're not Black.
Right.
We don't do that. And I said, and furthermore, I hope you do report me to all of them. I said, that'd be good publicity for me.
A wonderful response. Absolutely. It's amazing how we're not allowed to have our own space, how we're not allowed to gather, right? And that has been a tremendous way in which we've been defeated in the past, is that we give in when we want to gather and empower ourselves. We give in when others, to all others, right? all other.
Especially when they start to criticize.
Yes, especially. So good for you. I love it.
Well, I actually had a sister say to me that she could no longer support us because she couldn't she couldn't continue insulting her white sisters.
Wow.
She wanted me to change the name to All Women Empowered.
Right. Yeah.
I never really shared this.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is so interesting. But you know what I told her? I said, absolutely not.
Yeah. Good
This
for you.
is the vision God gave me.
Good for you.
Now, if it's insulting you, feel free to go.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I guess I can assure you that the name won't change.
And, what do you say to that? What do you say to that when we have no borders as a people? One of the things that I also do is I have a podcast. It's called Hey, I'm Listening. And I was talking about the healing journey, and it was just me on talking for that particular episode. But I finished off with the Nehemiah prayer. And I said, as Black people, we have no boundaries. There is no wall around us. And we've gotten quite comfortable with that. Like, boundaries are essential, and yet we have none. And as soon as other people ask us to take down our boundaries, we do it. So we are always so willing to not see that others have boundaries, and very successfully have held those boundaries and have kept themselves protected and safe. And by the way, entrepreneurially, always advancing ahead of us. And isn't it just about time that we begin to build some boundaries and support ourselves and elevate ourselves? So, what do you say to that? I'm almost like I wouldn't even know how to respond to her.
No one's coming to save us, Dr. Joan. We have to be our own saviors.
Yes.
And so I commend people like you and others and all the men and women who have not been discouraged or dismayed or given up on whatever it is that they're trying to do because someone said that's not what you should do. It's not politically correct. You're going to tick off, another group or whatever.
Yeah.
I commend the people because that's who I am.
Yeah.
I'm not giving up until my last breath. I will be supporting Black and brown women. That's the vision God gave me. I'll be doing it, and I make no apologies for that.
Excellence. It's that standard of excellence that I see in you, and the platform that you've raised up. And, the first step in excellence and moving towards that standard of excellence is obedience. And what I hear you saying is, God told me to do this, and I'm not going to mistake that for a man. And I'm just going to follow that through. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Amen. This has been so much fun. Like I told you earlier, that this is only the beginning, because I know for a fact God has isolated me from, and this is the truth, from so many people. The people that he connects me with are really supposed to be connected with me, because I've been in isolation. I'm not talking about just now, all my life.
Yeah.
I've been in isolation. He would only let me connect with certain people.
Mm.
And you're one of those special people. So we're going to continue on this journey together. We're going to grow. We're going to work together. We're going to empower people to get through trauma and whatever else God sees fit in
Love
our
it.
connection. So I thank you so much. This has been great. Tell our listeners how they can get your books, how they can follow you, all of that.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be with you, an absolute honor. And I too have been in that space of isolation. Sometimes it's a lonely road, but the right connections come along at the right time. So the precision and timing is here. Love it. You can go to my website at drjoan.ca, not .com. And there you'll find a newsletter. We're updating folks often about what it is that we're doing. On the front page, you'll also see a section that says Start Here. My books are listed there. And so you can have access to them either on Amazon, or for the Ultimate Forgiveness Journal, you'll purchase it from my other website, The Art of Letting Go.
I love it. Thank you so much, Dr. Joan. You are a beautiful and amazing queen, and I thank God for you. And I want to say thank you to all of our listeners. Make sure you follow Dr. Joan and stay on the lookout, because this is not the last time you're going to see her with BW. That I can assure you. God bless you, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.